Last month, I held my cat Luna in my arms as she took her final breath, and through my tears I whispered a prayer I wasn't sure God would hear. Will I ever see her again? That night, Jesus gave me an answer that changed how I see heaven forever, and what he showed me will heal every pet owner's broken heart. Before I share what happened that night, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. There's something comforting about knowing we're not alone in loving our animal companions so deeply. And if this message speaks to your heart, please consider subscribing. It gives me courage to share these intimate experiences that I believe can bring hope to hurting souls. I'm recording this from my home in New York, where Luna used to curl up beside me every evening while I prepared for my roles. It's been 6 weeks since she passed, and I still find myself looking for her in all her favorite spots. What Jesus revealed to me about the bonds we share with our beloved animals has completely transformed my grief into hope. Let me tell you Luna's story, and then I'll share the most beautiful revelation about heaven I've ever received. I found Luna 8 years ago, or perhaps more accurately, she found me. I was going through one of the darkest periods of my life, struggling as an actor, questioning my faith, feeling isolated and discouraged. I'd been praying for months, asking God for some sign that I wasn't walking this journey alone. That's when this tiny gray kitten showed up on my fire escape. It was a cold October evening, and I'd been having another sleepless night, pacing around my small apartment, wrestling with doubts about my calling, about whether any of my prayers were being heard. I heard this faint meowing outside my window, and when I looked out, there she was, this little ball of gray fur, maybe 8 weeks old, soaking wet from the rain, looking directly at me with these enormous green eyes. I brought her inside immediately, dried her off, and gave her some milk. She was so small she could fit in the palm of my hand, but she purred with such intensity that it seemed to fill the entire apartment with warmth. As I held her that first night, something shifted in my heart. For the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. I named her Luna because of the way she seemed to glow in the moonlight streaming through my window that first night. From that moment on, Luna became more than just a pet. She became my companion, my comfort, my reminder that love could show up in the most unexpected ways. During those long years of auditions and rejections, she was always there when I came home discouraged. She had this uncanny ability to sense when I was struggling, and she'd find ways to make me laugh or simply curl up next to me in perfect, silent understanding. When I was preparing for The Chosen, spending hours studying scripture and trying to understand the heart of Jesus, Luna would sit on my desk, purring softly while I read. Sometimes I'd joke that she was my prayer partner, but there was truth in that humor. Her presence brought such peace to those sacred study times. Luna had this remarkable intelligence that often amazed me. She seemed to understand when I was sad, when I was stressed, when I needed comfort. During the pandemic, when filming was shut down and I was isolated for months, she was my constant companion. We'd sit together for hours, me reading or praying, her contentedly purring in my lap. She had these little rituals that brought such joy to my daily life. Every morning, she'd wake me up by gently patting my face with her paw. Every evening when I came home, no matter how long I'd been gone, she'd greet me at the door with these soft chirping sounds that I swear sounded like hello. And every night, she'd curl up right next to my pillow, her purring lulling me to sleep. People who aren't animal lovers often don't understand the depth of these bonds. They'd say things like, "It's just a cat," or "You can always get another one." But anyone who has truly loved an animal knows that they're not replaceable. They're individuals with their own personalities, their own ways of showing love, their own irreplaceable place in your heart. Luna wasn't just a cat to me, she was family. She was a gift from God during a time when I desperately needed to know I wasn't forgotten. She was proof that love comes in many forms, and that sometimes the most profound comfort comes from the gentlest creatures. But then came the diagnosis. Last year, I noticed Luna wasn't eating as much as usual. She seemed lethargic, less playful. I took her to the vet, hoping it was just a minor issue, but the tests revealed kidney disease. The vet explained that with proper care, she could have several more good months, maybe even a year or two. I threw myself into caring for her Midas, special food, medications, regular checkups. For a while, she seemed to improve. She was still my Luna, still greeting me at the door, still purring in my lap. But gradually, I could see her declining. She was getting thinner, sleeping more, moving more slowly. The hardest part was seeing the confusion in her eyes when she didn't feel well. She couldn't understand why her body was failing her, why simple activities that used to bring her joy were becoming difficult. All I could do was hold her, pet her gently, and whisper promises that I would never let her suffer. 3 months ago, she took a turn for the worse. The vet said her kidneys were shutting down, and that continuing treatment would only prolong her discomfort without really improving her quality of life. The kindest thing, he said gently, would be to let her go peacefully. I'd been dreading this conversation for months, but hearing it out loud felt like a physical blow. How do you make that decision for someone you love? How do you choose to say goodbye when every fiber of your being wants to hold on? I brought Luna home that day, and we spent her final week together. I took time off from everything to just be with her. We sat in all her favorite spots, the sunny window where she used to watch birds, the cozy corner of the couch where she'd curl up during thunderstorms, the desk where she'd keep me company during late-night work sessions. I told her stories about all our adventures together. I thanked her for 8 years of unconditional love. I promised her that she'd never be forgotten, that she'd always be in my heart. And I prayed, constantly, desperately, that God would take away her pain and let her know how deeply she was loved. The morning came when I could see she was ready. She looked at me with those green eyes that had brought me comfort for so many years, and I could sense she was telling me it was time. I called the vet, and he came to the house so she could pass peacefully in familiar surroundings. I held Luna in my arms on her favorite blanket in the sunny spot by the window. The vet was incredibly gentle, explaining each step, giving me time to say everything I needed to say. As the medicine began to work, Luna looked directly into my eyes, purring softly one last time. I stroked her fur and whispered, "Thank you for loving me, sweet girl. Thank you for everything." And then she was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. The apartment felt enormous and empty in a way it never had before. Her food bowls, her toys, her favorite sleeping spots. Everything was still there, but she wasn't. The absence was overwhelming. That first night without her was one of the longest nights of my life. I kept listening for her footsteps, expecting to see her silhouette in the doorway. I reached for her in my sleep and woke up to emptiness. The grief was so much more intense than I had expected. Maybe you felt this emptiness too. Maybe you know what it's like to lose a beloved companion who asked for nothing but gave everything. Maybe you understand the guilt that comes with questioning whether you made the right decisions, whether you loved them enough, whether they knew how much they meant to you. For weeks after Luna passed, I struggled with questions I'd never really considered before. Do animals have souls? Do they go to heaven? Will I ever see her again? These weren't just theological curiosities. They were desperate heart cries from someone who had lost a family member and needed to know that the love we shared wasn't just gone forever. I'd been taught various things about animals and the afterlife throughout my life. Some people said animals don't have souls, that heaven is only for humans. Others said we couldn't know for sure, that it was best not to speculate. Still others believed that all of God's creatures continue in some form after death. But none of these second-hand opinions satisfied the ache in my heart. I needed to hear from God directly. 1 month after Luna's passing, I was having an especially difficult night. I'd found one of her toys tucked under the couch, and it brought back a flood of memories that left me sobbing. I was angry at myself for being so affected by the loss of just an animal, confused about why the grief felt so profound, and desperate for some kind of comfort or clarity. I got down on my knees in my living room, in the same spot where Luna used to curl up next to me during my evening prayers, and I cried out to God with a rawness I'd never allowed myself before. "Jesus," I whispered through my tears, "I know this might sound silly to you, but I need to know. Do animals have souls? Did Luna mean anything in the eternal scheme of things? Will I ever see her again?" I paused, feeling vulnerable and almost embarrassed for asking. I don't understand why losing her hurts this much, if it was just nothing. If the love between us didn't matter to you, please, I need to know that she's okay. I need to know that the bond we shared was real and meaningful, not just my imagination. The room was quiet except for the sound of my own breathing and the distant hum of city traffic. I stayed on my knees waiting, hoping, but not really expecting an audible answer. That's when I felt it, a warmth that started in my chest and gradually spread through my entire body. It wasn't just physical warmth, it was the feeling of being deeply understood, completely accepted, infinitely loved. The grief was still there, but it was being held by something much larger than itself. And then I heard his voice. Jonathan. I looked up, and Jesus was sitting in the chair where Luna used to watch me pray. He was wearing simple clothes, jeans and a soft sweater, and his expression held such tenderness that I immediately felt safe to be exactly as broken as I was. Your love for Luna wasn't silly, he said gently. It wasn't less important because she wasn't human. Love is love, Jonathan, and every genuine bond of love reflects my heart. I wiped my eyes, hardly believing this was happening, but somehow knowing it was exactly what I needed. But was it real? I asked. I mean, in eternal terms? Did our relationship matter to you? Jesus smiled, and it was the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. Let me show you something that will answer every question your heart is carrying, he said, standing up and extending his hand toward me. Let me show you what I see when I look at the love between my children and the creatures I've entrusted to their care. I reached out and took his hand, and immediately the room around us began to change. We were standing in what looked like the most beautiful garden I could imagine, but it was more than beautiful. It was alive with a kind of joy and peace that made everything I'd ever called beautiful seem pale in comparison. The colors were more vivid than anything on earth. The air itself seemed to sparkle with life, and there was music, not heard but felt, that made my heart want to dance. Welcome to a corner of my Father's house, Jesus said. The part where every creature that has ever shared genuine love with one of my children continues in perfect joy. And that's when I saw them. Animals everywhere, dogs, cats, horses, birds, rabbits, but not just existing, thriving. They were playing, running, flying with a freedom and vitality that surpassed anything they'd known on earth. They glowed with an inner light that spoke of complete health, endless energy, and pure happiness. The first truth I want you to understand, Jesus said, is that every creature carries a fragment of divine love. When I created animals, I breathed into them the capacity for loyalty, for joy, for companionship, for comfort. These aren't accidents, they're reflections of my character. I watched a golden retriever playing with a group of children, its tail wagging with such enthusiasm that its whole body wiggled with joy. I saw cats gracefully moving through the garden, birds singing in harmonies that made earthly music sound like whispers. Luna's capacity to comfort you when you were sad, Jesus continued, her ability to sense your moods, her gift for bringing peace to your prayers. Those weren't just animal instincts, they were expressions of my love working through her. I felt tears starting again, but they were different tears now, tears of wonder rather than grief. The second truth, Jesus said, is that the bonds formed in love don't end at death. Love is eternal, Jonathan. Every connection made in genuine love becomes part of the fabric of eternity. As he spoke, I began to notice something amazing. Throughout the garden, I could see people reuniting with animals, joyful encounters between souls who had been separated by death, but were now together again. An elderly man was throwing a stick for a border collie who bounded after it with puppy-like enthusiasm. A woman was cuddling a cat who purred with such contentment that the sound seemed to make the flowers around them bloom brighter. Every pet who brought comfort to a lonely heart, Jesus explained. Every animal who served as a companion through difficult seasons. Every creature who reflected my love to one of my children. Their service continues here, and their relationships with those they loved are restored and perfected. I was beginning to understand something that was almost too wonderful to believe. You mean Luna is here? She's okay? Jesus' smile grew even brighter. Would you like to see for yourself? He gestured toward a path that wound through flowering trees, and we began walking together. With each step, I felt my heart beating faster with anticipation and hope. The third truth I want you to understand, Jesus said as we walked, is that heaven is far fuller and more wonderful than most people imagine. Our Father's love doesn't exclude mist, it includes nothing created in love. Nothing that served love, nothing that reflected love is ever lost. We crested a small hill, and below us was a meadow filled with sunlight. And there, sitting in a patch of golden light, was a familiar gray figure. It was Luna. But Luna, as I'd never seen her before, she still looked like herself. The same gray fur, the same elegant features, the same green eyes, but she was radiant with health and vitality. She was grooming herself in that careful, precise way cats do, completely at peace, glowing with an inner light that spoke of perfect contentment. "Luna," I whispered. Her head snapped up immediately, and when she saw me, she made that same little chirping sound she used to make when I came home. She bounded toward us with energy I hadn't seen from her in years, and before I could fully process what was happening, she had leaped into my arms. The feeling of holding her again was indescribable. She was solid, real, warm, purring with such intensity that I could feel the vibration through my entire body. She nuzzled my face, bumped her head against my chin, and looked into my eyes with an intelligence and awareness that surpassed anything I'd seen from her on Earth. But more than that, I could somehow sense her thoughts, her feelings, her complete joy at being reunited with me. She was communicating love, gratitude, contentment, and something else. A deep knowing that everything was exactly as it should be. "I thought I lost you forever," I whispered into her fur, tears streaming down my face. And somehow I heard her response in my heart: "You could never lose me. Love doesn't work that way." Jesus sat down beside us in the meadow, watching our reunion, with obvious joy. "This is the fourth truth," he said gently. "In heaven, communication transcends the limitations of earthly existence. Luna can share her heart with you directly now, and you can understand each other in ways that weren't possible before." I looked down at Luna, who was now curled contentedly in my lap, and I could feel her communicating so much to me. Gratitude for the years of love and care, forgiveness for the times I'd been impatient or distracted, joy at being free from pain and illness, and most powerfully, a profound sense that our relationship had always been part of a larger plan. "She's telling me that she's grateful," I said to Jesus, somehow knowing this was true. "She's saying that loving me was part of her purpose, that bringing me comfort was what she was created to do." Jesus nodded. "Every creature that serves love is fulfilling their highest calling. Luna's mission on Earth was to be a source of comfort and companionship for you during seasons when you needed to experience my love in tangible form. She accomplished that mission perfectly. I spent what felt like hours in that meadow with Luna, experiencing a reunion more beautiful than anything I dared to hope for. She showed me around her part of the garden, introduced me to other animal friends she'd made, and demonstrated abilities she'd never had on Earth, leaping incredible distances, running with limitless energy, even seeming to glow brighter when she was especially happy. But the most amazing part was the communication between us. Every question I'd carried about her well-being, every regret about decisions I'd made regarding her care, every doubt about whether she'd known how much I loved her, all of it was resolved through this direct heart-to-heart connection. She let me know that she'd felt completely loved throughout her entire life. She understood why I'd made the difficult decision to let her go when she was suffering. She was grateful for every moment of care, every gentle touch, every whispered word of love, and she wanted me to know that she'd never really left me. That love had kept her connected to me even after her physical death. "The fifth truth," Jesus said, "is what you're experiencing right now. Death doesn't end relationships formed in love, it perfects them. All the limitations that existed on Earth, the inability to fully communicate, the barriers of physical form, the pain and illness that can interfere with connection, those limitations are removed here." As the time came for me to return to Earth, I felt panic rising in my chest. I didn't want to say goodbye again. I couldn't bear the thought of losing Luna a second time. Luna seemed to sense my distress. She placed her paw gently on my hand and communicated the most beautiful truth. "This isn't goodbye, this is until we meet again, and now you know for certain that we will." Jesus stood up, indicating that our visit was ending. "Remember, Jonathan," he said, "love is the most powerful force in the universe. It transcends death, it bridges dimensions, it connects hearts across any distance. The love you shared with Luna was real, it was meaningful, and it's eternal." As the garden began to fade around us, Jesus left me with one final truth. Every person watching who has lost a beloved animal companion needs to know this. Their pet's love was not less meaningful because they weren't human. The comfort they provided was a genuine ministry. The joy they brought was a real gift from my Father's heart. and the bond you shared continues in ways you can't see but your heart knows are true. I found myself back in my living room, but everything had changed. The emptiness was gone, replaced by a sense of connection and hope. Luna's physical presence wasn't there, but I no longer felt like she was gone. I felt like she was simply in a different room of a house we both belonged to. Over the weeks since that encounter, I've noticed something beautiful. The grief hasn't disappeared entirely, but it's been transformed. Instead of feeling like I lost Luna, I feel like I have something wonderful to look forward to. Instead of our relationship being over, I know it's simply in a different phase. And I've become aware of signs that Luna is still connected to me in ways I never expected. Sometimes I'll feel a warm presence when I'm praying, as if she's keeping me company like she used to. Sometimes I'll catch a glimpse of gray in my peripheral vision, just enough to remind me that love doesn't really disappear. Sometimes I'll wake up in the morning with a sense of contentment that feels like her purring. I know this might sound impossible to some people watching. I know there will be skeptics who think this was just wishful thinking or an elaborate dream, but I also know there are people watching who have loved and lost animal companions, who have wondered the same questions I wondered, who have felt the same desperate need to know that the love they shared mattered in eternal terms. If that's you, if you've lost a pet who meant the world to you, if you've questioned whether you'll ever see them again, if you felt guilty for grieving so deeply over just an animal, I want you to know something that Jesus made crystal clear to me. Your love for your pet was real and meaningful. The comfort they provided was a genuine gift from God's heart. The joy you shared was a taste of heaven, and the bond you formed was eternal. Your dog, your cat, your horse, your bird, whatever beloved companion you've lost, they're not just gone, they're experiencing perfect health, limitless joy, and complete peace. They remember you with love, they're grateful for the care you provided, and they're waiting for the day when you'll be reunited in a place where saying goodbye will never be necessary again. The guilt you might feel about end-of-life decisions, the regret over times you might have been impatient, the questions about whether you loved them enough, let it all go. They understood, they forgave, they knew they were loved. And for those of you who might be caring for an aging or sick pet right now, facing difficult decisions about their care, wondering how you'll know when it's time to let go, trust your heart. The same love that brought them into your life will guide you in knowing how to love them best, even when that love requires letting go. God sees the love between you and your animal companions. He values it, He honors it, and He has made provision for it in eternity. The Bible tells us that God's love extends to every creature, that He cares for the sparrows, that not one of His creations is forgotten. How much more does He care for the animals who have served as instruments of His love in your life? When Jesus returns to make all things new, when heaven and earth are joined together, when every tear is wiped away, your beloved pets will be part of that restoration. The garden I saw was just a glimpse of the fullness that's coming, when every relationship formed in love will be perfectly restored. Until that day, carry the love you shared as a precious treasure. Let their memory bring you comfort rather than only sadness. When you miss them, remember that missing them is proof of how much love you shared, and know that love like that never really ends. It just takes on a different form. Father God, I pray for everyone watching who has loved and lost a precious animal companion. I pray for the healing of their hearts, for comfort in their grief, and for the hope that comes from knowing love is eternal. For those who are missing their beloved pets tonight, remind them that the love they shared was real and meaningful in your eyes. Help them to feel the ongoing connection that death cannot break. Give them peace about the decisions they made in love, and hope for the reunion that awaits. For those who are currently caring for aging or sick animals, give them wisdom and strength. Help them to love well, to make decisions guided by compassion, and to trust that you will guide them in knowing how best to care for the creatures you've entrusted to them. And for anyone who might be hesitant to open their heart to animal companionship because of the pain of loss, help them to understand that love is always worth the risk. The joy and comfort that animals bring far outweighs the sorrow of goodbye, especially when we know that goodbye is not forever. Thank you for creating animals with the capacity to love, to comfort, to bring joy, and to reflect your character. Thank you for the bonds of love that connect us across species, across dimensions, across time itself. In Jesus' name, amen. The truth that changed my life and healed my heart is this: love never dies. The love you shared with your animal companion was a glimpse of heaven, a taste of the perfect relationships that await us all. Your pet's love was real, their service was valuable, and their place in your heart is permanent. You haven't lost them forever, you've simply sent them ahead to prepare a place for your reunion. And when that day comes, you'll understand that every moment of love you shared was exactly as precious and eternal as your heart always knew it was.